Now let us discuss an example of simple linear regression application. So the first example is that a study was made by a retail merchant to determine the relation between the weekly advertising expenditures and sales. And this is the given data. We have the advertising cost in 1,000 pesos, and then we have the sales in 1,000 pesos. And then we have to look for the equation of the regression line to predict weekly sales from advertising expenditures. And of course, we have to estimate the weekly sales when advertising cost is 35,000 pesos. And as for the solution, it might as well as we have to create a tabular solution wherein we have the first column as the advertising cost and the second column as the sales in 1,000 pesos. And of course, since we need to find the square of the x and the product of the xy to find the slope b and of course the y-intercept a in finding the linear regression equation. Now it is given, since we have to look for the equivalent sales for the advertising cost, so this is understood that the y here is the sales, and of course the advertising cost will be the x. So we have to find the total of the x, and the total is 410. So this is understood 410,000. And then for the sales, weekly sales, we have a total of 5,445. So when we multiply it by 1,000, this is understood as 5,445,000. And then we have to find the square of the x, squaring the 40 as 1,600 and so on. Then we have a total of 15,650 and the product of xy as 40,000 times 385 as 15,400, and then do the same for the next values, and then we have the value as a total of 191,325. Then you can now find the value of the y-intercept A and the slope B as using the formula respectively. Finding the y-intercept, this is our formula. The sum of the y values multiplied by the sum of x squared minus the sum of x times the sum of the product of xy divided by the number of observations n times the sum of x squared minus the sum of x raised to square. And then from the table, we have this value as, for the sum of y, this is 5,445, and the sum of x squared is 15,650. And then minus the sum of x is 410, and the sum of the product of xy is 191,325. And then divided by the number of observations as 12. Let us go back to the table. So this is, there are 12 observations given here. And then the sum of the x squared is 15,650 and minus the sum of x, 410 raised to square. Using your calculator, we have a total of 343.71 for the y-intercept of A. Finding the slope B, we have the formula as the n, the number of observations n, times the sum of the product of xy minus the product of sum of x and the sum of y divided by the number of observations n to be multiplied by the sum of x squared minus the sum of x raised to square. So again, substituting the values given or derived from the table, we have that the number of observations is still 12. And for the product of the x and y has a total of 191,325 minus the product of the sum of x 410 and the sum of y as 5,445 divided by the number of observations 12 times the sum of x squared as 15,650 minus the 410 raised to square. Now here, the slope that you will get here is 3.22. And then substituting to the equation of linear regression equation, so we have that y equal to A plus BX. So if A is 343.71 and the B is 3.22, so our linear regression equation here is y equal to 343.71 plus 3.22x. And then after finding the linear regression equation, you can find now, or you can estimate now, the value of the weekly sales when the advertising cost is given as 35,000. So if the advertising cost is 35,000, then we can compute now that the weekly sales is 113,043.71.